Well, friendly hellos and welcome to the first Notary Governance call of March 28th, 2023. On the agenda for this call, we are going to look at some updates for the Notary Leaderboard. We are going to have an update on the Pulse survey that went out to you notaries in the private channel, and Galen's going to walk us through a roadmap and mission updates. From the proposal side of the house, we're going to highlight 3 of the recently closed proposals, make sure that that was tracking for everybody. We have Greaterheat that submitted a proposal along with Protocol Labs. We'll highlight that and answer any questions you have. We have updates around the Diligence Flow, as well as increasing the limits on size requests, and we'll get into those in more detail. We also have KZ and RG on the line that will be giving updates from their respective working groups. KZ will be talking to the pilot program that they're implementing over at Enterprise Filecoin Plus, and RG will be walking us through the dispute trackers as well as the resolution template that they've been developing. On this call, as always, we'll have plenty of time at the end. So if there was a topic that you weren't able to add, we will be able to get to that at the end of the call. Like always, we'll be able to address it. So with that, this is the governance call. These take place every other week if this is your first time dialing in. The next call will be on April 11th. Calls take place 2 times throughout the day, 0800 and 1800. That's 15 and 01 UTC. And if you follow this link, you can add this to your calendars. We put this slide deck in the Filecoin Plus channel. So if you check Slack right now, you'll see this agenda for me, as well as in the comments will be this slide deck if you'd like to follow along. If you want to add a point to this agenda, feel free just to make it an issue in the GitHub. These get posted 2 weeks in advance, and this will include anything that might be on your mind that you want to see on these calls. For those of you that are notaries, we have a new way for you to sign in. The leaderboard is now live. The link is here, and I'm going to drop it here in chat momentarily. And with this, we're going to create a meeting link at the start of every call. So let me show you what this looks like. So essentially, this is the leaderboard that was developed by Phil. And you can see each time that there is a call, there's a call attended session. So what I'll do is before every notary governance call, I will create a new meeting that will have a specific code. And if you take this code, you can then input it into your leaderboard in order to get the participation for it. So since I've already managed this meeting, I'm just going to grab this specific code for everyone on the line right now, and I'm going to drop it in chat right here. And just in case you don't have the link to get onto the leaderboard, if this is your first time, I'll put that right there in the chat as well. So any notaries on the call, if you follow that link and input that, this will automatically put this under your calls attended. So big props and shout out to Cataline. Props to you, Phil, for setting this up and making this so much more easy. If you're on the call and you are not a notary, you're a storage provider, you're a community participant, you're anybody who's not a notary, we are going to continue using this Airtable form for you in the time being. So if you log in with this Airtable, you can then get your input into that. If you're a notary and you hit any blocks with this new leaderboard, feel free to use that Airtable or send me a Slack. I also grab a screenshot of these calls so I can see you on the line right there. But this will be the way that we sign in going forward, and this will make it all automatic and a really easier way for all of us to get our names down and really put that process in. So I'll pause and see if anybody has any questions before we go on as far as like signing up and going on this.
Hey, Kevin, I have a question. Are you just supposed to sign in with a GitHub handle?
It should be with your existing GitHub information. So whatever your GitHub handle is that's linked to your address, that's what this leaderboard.
I just did, but it's a login fail. That's the first one. And then the second one is that I did not receive any email regarding like, I think Galen sent something previously about an email being sent out. So I just want to make sure that the address is correct.
Good flag. CB, what we'll do in the meantime is why don't you use the Airtable and we'll take a look at yours and make sure it's all set. So I put the Slack Airtable just above. Go ahead and use that, and that will link the day. Thanks for flagging
That's
that.
Good. Thanks.
Sweet. So moving right along, friendly reminder on who your governance team is. So my name's Kevin. You can come to me with any kind of support or notary issues. KZ leads our enterprise working group for Filecoin Plus and all the large data sets. RG leads the trust and transparency working group. Phil has been working on notary tooling, like the leaderboard we just saw. Simon has been working on client onboarding, and he's going to give a couple of updates on his projects. Deep is responsible for the overall data flow. And of course, Galen's leading the overall governance project as we go forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Galen.
Hello. There's some stuff happening in the chat about being able to copy and paste messages. It looks like people cannot copy. I can copy, but maybe that is a host enabled thing. If I hover over someone's chat and highlight it, I can right click and copy quote their message. So we may need to look at Zoom settings, but also people may need to update their Zoom software, because you should be able to do things like add reactions and emojis and threads in Zoom chat. And it's like a relatively recent past few months update. So your Zoom client might be out of date. But yeah, we will look at the Zoom setting on the website as well for copying chats so that people can copy the meeting code. But that's that. Thanks for ironing out those kinks. Shifty gears. Mission statement. We have been working on this. We've had a number of meetings with various stakeholders, and kind of workshopping, like finalizing a version to publicly align and orient. We'll be posting some additional blog posts that add some more kind of copy, some more context for like how we landed here, unpacking it a little bit. We're sort of in the work of pulling together a number of different resources right now, and we want to have this as a more cohesive thing. So rather than just releasing them piece by piece. So here's the mission statement. The E-Fil Plus program supports use cases for data onboarding and utilization of Filecoin's decentralized storage network through community governed trust mechanisms. This should be like non-controversial. This is the same, functionally the same stuff that we have been doing and supporting for a long time. A lot of people have kind of taken a mission statement that Deep and I put on some slides, or a statement that Deep and I put on some slides like 2 years ago, and used that canonically as the mission statement, even though it was not really. And it was functionally the same thing. It was, data onboarding with social trust, social trust layer. So, like I said, stay tuned for a blog post. We'll be announcing it in various Slack channels and blasting it out that has a little bit more context around this mission statement. But use cases for data onboarding and utilization, community governed trust. That's what we're about. Up next slide, I think, is also me. Yeah, we got a roadmap. We had a public version. We're restructuring it. It was kind of oriented around some buckets of work around like documentation or strategic change proposals. We're sort of in the process, like Deep and I and the rest of the governance team, rearranging this into these sort of 6 themes, these like 6 work areas. So with the mission statement that we previously talked about, we really want to highlight these 6 work areas. This is kind of going to be our prioritization and focus. And then the roadmap will be bucketed around these 6 within the specific kind of strategic projects that we will be doing to work towards them, and some timelines and milestones across the next couple of weeks. So again, when we post that blog post, it'll have a link to that roadmap. So stay tuned for that. But to just go over them now, also should not be surprised or controversial. These are things that we have always cared about. We're just kind of codifying them and writing them out. The program enables Filecoin's master plan to onboard massive amounts of data to the network. This comes from the top level. I mean, the go check out the Filecoin master plan. Listen to some talks by Mr. Juan Benet, and he will touch on this and explain like how it is, the functional importance of the Filecoin network. Number 2 is one that people have been, really calling out and interested in and invested in, and we think that it is significantly important. Datacap abuse in the system is minimized. We have been working on that for the entire time. We continue to work on that. We have, like I said, we'll have some strategic initiatives that focus on this explicitly. Some people have different opinions about where we are or where we might be. that's great. We welcome those like dissenting opinions. Everybody is going to have a different viewpoint on like what is qualified as abuse and how much is in the system. We'll be releasing some statistics that explain what our stance on it is based on how we are defining Datacap abuse and then producing some more metrics and some changes to try and address that to make it even less. We want to minimize the abuse because that will maximize sort of the value of the program, the value of the Datacap subsidy, the value of all the work that we're doing. Number 3, notaries perform robust diligence commensurate with the Datacap granted. Not controversial. If you are granting a lot of Datacap, you are probably needing to do a lot more diligence, and look at some of our tools like the auto verifier. That is performing an amount of diligence, but it is an amount of diligence that is commensurate with the amount of Datacap that is being given. If you're not getting a huge volume of Datacap at a time, you shouldn't necessarily have to do a huge volume of KYC. That's really what that one's about. Number 4, disputes and allegations of abuse are investigated with an emphasis on restorative justice. This is something we care about. People make mistakes. People in this program, people in this community, ourselves, we miss things. We design something to function one way and something goes off the rails. Somebody misses something, everybody's busy. A lot of like our notaries are people that are volunteering their time to do this work. Disputes happen, mistakes happen, people say things in a heated moment, people are highly invested in this. We get it. We also want to investigate those and resolve them, but we want to do it with an air of trying to keep this a productive, healthy, and welcoming community where people have coached back into best behavior. 5, legitimate client use cases have scoped pathways for attaining Datacap. This is something we've worked really hard on doing, is how do we set up a scoped pathway for all the different types of clients. This is work that you've heard Casey talk about a lot, of like, how do we support different levels of enterprise? And not all enterprise is going to need the same thing. And enterprise is not going to need the same thing that a very large nonprofit public data set needs, right? So how do we have pathways that are really designed for that particular client to serve their best needs, and keep that process standardized so the client experience is really pleasant, while also providing the level of diligence that we want. And lastly, our governance model encourages rapid iteration and process improvement for diverse stakeholders. Believe it or not, the 28 people on this call don't necessarily have the same interests or investments or opinions. They may want the program to look a different way. I don't always agree with K-Reg. I know, shock and awe. But be that as it may, like, we are still stakeholders invested in this, and we have to come together and collaborate and try things. We want to try things rapidly. We want to iterate on them. We want to learn from them. We want to move forward. And just like I've said, I think that we're doing a pretty good job. We've pushed a lot of proposals out. We push a lot of proposals really quickly. And on certain things, we very intentionally need to go slower, and certain things just take longer. Designing and shipping some of these tech implementations that require a lot of interlap behind the scenes, it takes a while to get those different dev teams pulling in the same direction. When there's a network upgrade, and we've got to invest a lot of tooling time going back and making sure that things haven't busted from network upgrades. So I think we move pretty rapidly. I think that we bias towards action. I think that we bias towards proof of concept and testing. And I think that we can demonstrate that, again, with some metrics and continue to make it better. I think that there are ways that we have to improve on that. So those are the 6 main work areas that we are really focusing on. And like I said, we'll be releasing a public roadmap where you can kind of dig into some of these. We'll be releasing some new metrics where we will hold ourselves accountable, and we want you guys to help hold us accountable. So stay tuned. Very exciting. And then I think I have the next slide as well. Y'all gonna be sick of me. Notary Pulse email. There, believe it or not, there have been some spicy conversations in the community recently around a couple different FIP discussions, and around this program that was brought about by FIPS 003. So again, if you want to think about like where we as a Filecoin network have come from, Filecoin Plus, go back and read FIPS 003 or don't. And then stay tuned and look at FIP 56 and these various things. So we, the governance team, want to sort of get a pulse check. This is not a vote. This is not a poll. This is more like an opinion gathering survey where we want to come up with a consistent and low lift way where we can get feedback on a couple different topics. And we're going to try this mechanism of using a scale of 0 to 5. 5 being, I fully support this. Like if this goes through, I think this is the best idea ever. I'm very excited about this. It's awesome. Like full marks. Great job. 4, I'm moderately supportive. 3, I'm pretty neutral. I could go either way. The community agrees with it. I don't have a strong opinion. I see both sides of the argument. I don't really have a better idea. Like I'm neutral, and I will work to support it. I'm cautiously optimistic that this could work. 2, I'm moderately unsupportive. If the community thinks this is the direction, if most people want to push this thing, whatever the idea or the topic is, I have some concerns. I'm cautiously unsupportive about this thing. 1, I'm like moderately unsupportive. I have strong reservations about this idea, and I have another idea. I have an alternative. I have a justification. I have something I want to add to this because I think there is a better way to do this thing. So that is a 1. And then a 0 is like, I will do what I can to like try and block this and prevent this. I think this is like a bad idea. I think this is a bad situation. I have something I want to say. I have an alternative proposal. I have justifications. I very strongly disagree with this and want to have my opinion heard. So that's the structure that we're going to use. I sent that email out based on email addresses that we had for notaries in one of our databases. I've already gotten some notifications from people that you didn't receive it. So we'll be working to keep cleaning up those emails. What I ask is that you use the Slack messages between K-Ray that he set up, where you guys have your code, your Slack and email code, so that we can then vet and make sure. Things happen, people lose access to comms or tech. We just want to make sure that we have consistency of who we are talking to and communicating with. We'll get that email address updated. And the vision for these forms is that it would be 1 per notary organization. So I know some of your organizations, you have multiple people working as notaries. We ask that you collaborate, communicate, get together, and come to a cohesive opinion on the forms and submit 1 reply. And we'll be tracking to 1 reply per organization. And those links will be unique to your organization. So that's that. If you didn't get a form this time and you're very concerned that your opinion won't be heard on this one, we're working to get the form out. I know that the FIP is still in, FIP 56 is still in last call. We are also just working to get this feedback and pass it up to the various decision makers so they have heard from the notary community. So that's that. I think there's some conversation in, there's a couple conversations in the chat. We're investigating some login issues. Copying SSA bot is down for maintenance, and FIP 56. To my knowledge, FIP 56 is not a poll. What they're doing is they are sourcing feedback from the various community members and passing that to different stakeholder decision groups like the core devs, so that they can have kind of a sense of how different stakeholder groups feel about it. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to capture some of the feedback of the notaries, knowing that notaries are also usually played multiple roles and have multiple ways to provide that feedback. We wanted to present it as specifically the Filecoin Plus notary community. That, thank you for the time. K-Ray, back to you.
Oh, thanks for that, Galen. I'm going to skip these and go right into the proposals. So we recently closed out 3 proposals. I'm just flagging this just in case you aren't watching GitHub like a hawk. This was just on your radar. The first was there was a bug report about the wrong allocation static that's been corrected and closed. The second was the T&T review of Metawave. Since there have been no more discussions on that since February, we've gone ahead and closed that out. But as always, if you have additional thoughts or comments, feel free to comment on that issue and reopen it. And third was the T&T Code of Conduct. We discussed these in great detail back in February, and RG has some updates on a new proposal that's moving forward. So this is just for transparency. We closed out these 3 issues. But there's been a few more. So the first one, Alan from Greaterheat, are you on the call? If not, I'll speak to this. I don't see him on the call, so feel free to interrupt me if you're on the call or anybody who's representing this from Protocol Labs or Greaterheat. This is kind of an interesting opportunity. So essentially what's coming up in the mid part of 2023 is Protocol Labs and Greaterheat are going to be sponsoring essentially a bootcamp for onboarding of very large data sets. These could be a combination of like high quality data sets like LDNs or the E-Fil Plus program data sets for that enterprise data. They've created an issue in GitHub, and what they're seeking is 30 participants from the Asia regions that want to participate in this bootcamp to fast track this data onboarding and going forward. So if you're looking to learn more about this project, or you might be interested in joining this bootcamp from large data set providers, issue 845 is live. This is very much like this is coming. This isn't the call. This isn't the sign up. This is just making sure that you're aware that this will be coming in mid 2023. So there's not even really like a definitive start date on this. But in the middle of 2023, 30 storage providers from the Asia regions will be selected. And this issue 845 is open if anybody wants to check it out. I'll pause and see if anybody has questions before we move on to the next. Wonderful. Next one is the due diligence.
Right. Hey guys. So wanted to propose this is proposal number 850. It's proposed change for notaries to have template comments that they can comment on an application. Essentially, notaries can put these comments, these saved replies on applications. It auto pastes it, and then you can choose. You can write a justification as to why you approve or reject or disapprove of a certain application. Depending on whether you approve or disapprove, it will add a label to the application. And these labels are very significant as they can signal to other notaries your position on that application, as well as give us data for tooling decisions in the future. So we think this is a good idea, and we're testing it right now. And we're going forward with it. And I think going forward, it helps create transparency in the LDN application process. And yeah, you can go ahead and read it. If you have comments, please post it at 850. Let me know if you have any thoughts or whether you like it or not like it. And yeah. Sounds good. Passing it on to Simon then.
Hey everyone. So we will be resurfacing this proposal idea that was introduced some time ago by Deep and Galen in the past. Due to incoming projects that are requesting for more than 5 PIBs, the proposal will introduce the idea that the Datacap request limit on LDNs should increase to a maximum amount per application of 15 PIBs. This idea of increasing the Datacap request limit would just help decrease redundant client applications and provide a more accurate insight on the total dataset size that clients are requesting. But with a high data cap request, a risk that people might be concerned about is the allocation size that clients might receive throughout the process. So with the new limit introduced, we would also change the allocation math to avoid that. So if you look at the current allocation process that we're using today for the program, and below is the max request scenario. So K-Ray, if you could just maybe hover over that part. Yeah, right there. It kind of points out all of the current scenario right now. So if a client requests for 5 PIBs of total data cap, 1 PIB per week onboard rate, you can see that the first allocation is about 0.25 PIBs, second allocation, half a PIB, third, 1, fourth, 2, and then so on. With the new allocation process, it will be lesser of 50% of the weekly allocation rate or 0.25 PIBs and so on. So the one right below that. So if you see the tranche sizes for the allocation will still be similar to how the program currently is, and the speed that clients are receiving data cap shouldn't change. So what's changing is the LDN limit request so that we can just help clients with creating less redundant applications, but the speed of allocation will still stay the same. Last thing to mention, as part of this change, the scope is adjusted to if clients would like to apply for more than 15 PIBs, they should go through the E-Fil Plus pathway. The E-Fil Plus pathway just serves as a testing ground for enterprise data and new use cases for client onboarding. So if you're interested in this or have any questions, you can reach out to Kevin Z. Yeah, thank you. And again, always appreciate feedback and your input. So if you have any time, go ahead and comment on the proposal.
I think I would like to hear if there are any participants on the call. Like, this has been like something, like Simon said, Deep and I brought this up many moons ago, and we got a lot of opinions in both directions, supporting it or calling against it. I think our plan here is we want to try and, like we're saying, decrease all the duplicate applications, but still have the tranche sizes be a way to gate how much data cap could go out at any given time. Does this Y15? Yeah, it felt like tripling the amount based on looking at the number of big duplicate applications that came in. 15 seemed like a reasonable place where we were seeing application requests. There are projects that are bigger than 15 PIBs, but those seem to mostly fit into an enterprise pathway. Something that's at the scale of 20 and 25 PIBs is probably an enterprise grade, whether it's public or private. It's probably an enterprise type of client or project. Not a perfect cut line, but
hey, Galen, what is the rationale for not increasing the speed though? Because from what I'm seeing, a lot of SPs actually, when they do large data set deal making, they typically start at 300, 400, or even 1 petabyte. I mean, I don't think they can do 15 petabyte in one shot, but for the very first one, they can easily do a few hundred terabyte.
Yeah, and that's because we want to build trust over time. And so if someone applies for 15 PIBs and they're a brand new client, a brand new, GitHub account, if we were to take it just on the quality of their application, in this model, the first allocation is still throttled, right? They're still getting a scoped amount that allows us to see what notaries signed it, how much diligence did the notaries perform, where is that data cap ending up? We can use tools like CID Checkerbot, so we can apply a lot more of our quantitative analysis once they've gotten an allocation. And as of now, doing a smaller allocation, again, back to the stuff we talked about, that I talked about with the roadmap, a commensurate amount of data cap to the amount of diligence that's being done. Someone can go in and put in an application right now and say 15 and put in a lot of information that is not necessarily accurate. And a group of notaries could look at it and say, well, we want this to move quickly. We don't want to gate on trying to vet all of the details. Let's give them their first allocation and see what they do. So we'd like that first allocation to still be scoped, because at the scale of the footprint of the network, giving somebody a quarter of a pib of data cap is not the worst thing in the world. If we then learn, we could quickly pull it back. We can shut them down. We can track bad behavior. If we gave somebody, 4 pibs of data cap right away, that becomes like a much bigger threat vector, a bigger risk. So we want to balance notaries being able to support clients quickly, bias towards yes, give them enough rope to get started and see what they do, with how much can we give them right away for it to not be a threat vector.
Yeah, no, I mean, very, very valid point. Have you guys, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of trade-offs, but what about like 5 petabyte cap for first-time applicant, and then subsequent applicants could be like 15, but a faster speed? Or would that be,
so
I mean, I'm sure it makes everything more complicated.
Yeah, it just becomes complicated as like another thing to track. And also, if you're a first-time applicant, we've seen a number of people that come to the network and they're onboarding, Seal is an example, right? Like they want to do, they're doing enterprise level, like big projects, and they're the first-time applicant where they're, getting started doing these like big projects. And so we want to get them a scoped, like fast pathway to get started that could grow, to 15 pibs. And one of the main things that we have seen that just becomes a tracking nightmare, it becomes a tooling nightmare, it just adds to the confusion, is when people need to open multiple copies. We tried it. It was a hypothesis of saying, what if you open 5 copies of this application, at 5 petabytes each? And what that leads to is, you tracking different client addresses, and someone signs on one when they should have signed a different one. And you look at the dashboard and there's, 500 open issues, but that's because how many of them are duplicates. So it's just leading to more at the top of the funnel, more of these open applications to deal with that are just duplicates and redundant. And so we could decrease the number of copies as part of the hypothesis, while not introducing, like you're saying, this new thing of, okay, well, now we have to track GitHub account, and we have to say, has this GitHub account opened an issue before? And what happens if their first issue was using the auto verifier? Does that count? So then we're adding, additional decision making into it. But I like that idea of like, could we scale and say, if once you've done 5 pibs successfully, then you could do, X more pibs. That said, that behavior should fit into notary's decision making. When a notary goes to check an allocation, if the client has submitted a previous application before, or has done a direct allocation request, or has used the auto verifier, like those are things that should help a notary make a decision faster, to say, who has this person already started working with? Check their deal making behavior.
Yeah, I think just like one last thing, because I think we should move on. But if anyone has like, concerns or comments, just like UCB, and I bet other people on this call just have some too, just please post it on the proposal, and we can either ID it from there. We have 2 weeks before this proposal might get closed or not, so we can make adjustments or however. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. With that, we're going to switch gears over to the working groups. So the first working group update's coming from KZ on the Enterprise Fill Plus pilot side. KZ.
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everyone. So as for those of you that have been following along with the E-Fil Plus pilot, in addition to being a pathway to onboard not only private data sets, but also larger enterprise data, we're using it as a testing grounds for different areas of the program that we want to sort of, see what we can iterate on. One of those is notary assignments. So in the general LDN process, notaries are as you all are aware, allowed to review and sign or decline on any application that you see fit. But in the E-Fil program, we have a select group of 35 notaries that have volunteered to be part of the multi-sig, and they are randomly assigned to applications. So they're not allowed to choose which ones they want to sign and which ones they don't. So today I just wanted to quickly present the key findings that I've created thus far from what we've put together. Just to quickly go through this, and you can look at this in detail and feel free to give me feedback later. But looking at 14 applications that were part of the process, at a high level, there was 106 notaries that were randomly assigned to review an allocation and either sign, decline, or do nothing. 63 of those that were assigned engaged, meaning they, within the time frame that we set, they reviewed the application, they submitted a comment for the client, or they signed the application. 43 of those did not reply at all. So in the time frame they were assigned, they didn't meet the standard that we were looking for. Now, just one level higher, of those that engaged, so of the 63 that commented and were engaged in the application, 46 of those signed that request and 17 did not. So, this is a pretty good sample size. We'd like to continue collecting data here. But my key takeaways at this point are, if you look at it overall, technically only 32 of those that were assigned signed per the guidelines. And that's not a good or bad thing. It's just saying that it takes a lot of time and energy, not only to assign notaries, to have notaries look into these applications, but it also takes energy on the clients to have to wait, especially those clients that are putting in the time and effort to do KYC, KYB, put together an application that is deemed trustworthy, and the notaries aren't paying attention. So I think overall, there's room to iterate here. This isn't meeting the expectations that we'd like to set here. Engagement is high, though, I will say, right? The test we put forward is a good one. Notaries are engaged more than they would be in just any other random applications that are available for them to review. But it's not necessarily on the time needed basis that we're looking for. So this is something else to consider. And then I'd say lastly, only 5 notaries that were assigned actually declined to sign an application. And it could have been for a variety of reasons, but the notaries can choose not to sign for whatever reason they deem fit, as long as they explain. So only 5% overall didn't sign an application that were engaged. To me, that speaks strongly towards what we're doing up front with these applications, and we're making the clients build trust coming into the program. So it makes the notary job a lot easier once they're engaged and they're looking at these applications. I think this is showcasing that having that upfront KYC done, having the SPs listed out and the allocation plans all very clear, it makes it super simple for notaries to follow those that are engaged. So, okay, right to the next slide. I have one more quick slide here. So one thing I'm thinking about moving forward with this test, now that we've collected some data, I wanted to open a discussion about an idea I have, but just more broadly, what we're seeing coming out of this testing ground is this idea that I think notaries should be involved from the beginning to the end of a specific application. Instead of assigning notaries per allocation, it could be randomly for any application that they're a part of E-Fil. I would rather have either a group or this goes back to maybe a smaller multi-sig idea, where notaries are involved not only from the beginning, where the initial phase is this idea of like reviewing the client up front, talking to them, reviewing their KYC, building that trust up front. And then there's the phase 2, which is once they've received at least their first allocation of Datacap, working with them to see how they're using the Datacap. Are they doing what they said they were going to do in their application? Are they having issues? Do they need to change the SPs? Whatever those things are, a set of notaries that are dedicated and involved from the beginning to the end, in my opinion, is more valuable than just randomly assigning notaries to review allocations. So this is something I just want to throw out there. I'm open to ideas, comments. I haven't put forward, a proposal yet, let's say. I'd like to just have an open discussion. Feel free to reach out in the link listed there. But I think overall, by assigning notaries from start to finish, we can really focus on that upfront trust. We can allow notaries to remain active and aware of what's going on from the beginning through the end. And then we sort of reduce the time and effort, and we minimize a negative experience for clients that are real clients with real data. They've done what they can, and they're expecting notaries to put in time and effort on their side as well. So that's what I have for today, KRA. Open to questions, comments. Also, again, move this to the discussion portion of this topic and go forward there.
All right. Seeing no comments, as KZ mentioned, we'll have plenty of time at the end if anybody wants to circle back. RG?
Great. Thanks, Gary. So I think today I wanted to take some time to share some of the priorities that the Trust and Transparency Working Group is currently focused on. So the first thing that is top of the priority list is formalizing the dispute resolution process by introducing staking. So this is issue number 846. Right now it's open for discussion. There are two proposals that were recommended by FF Legal. So we created this form with a bunch of proposals, and these are the two options that we're currently considering. So we still have one more week, which is this week, for discussion. If there is no engagement, the governance team will kind of be forced to decide which approach to take. So if you have a strong opinion about either of these solutions, please engage with the issue or post your comments. You can go to the next slide. The second priority right now is essentially increasing visibility into disputes that are being raised. And so right now, we recently launched the T&T Dispute Resolution Tracker. This also has a Google form that you can find. So you can find all of this on issue 849. And so the hope is that we can move away from these large threads that are started on Slack and essentially have a better way to manage disputes. So what I'll be doing is, for the time being, I'll be populating it based on the disputes that we receive in the Google form. But down the line, we will have integrations so that we can automate how the dispute resolution tracker is populated. So if you have suggestions on how to improve the tracker, just from the perspective of UX, or also if you wanted to add fields to this tracker, please comment on the issue, or you can even just DM me on Slack. Next slide. The third thing that we're focused on is supporting new use cases. This is directly connected to what Galen mentioned at the beginning of the call, given Filecoin Plus's mission statement. And so over the last year, we've aspired to take more of a preventive approach than a reactionary approach. Every once in a while, we do react to kind of big allegations about Datacap abuse, but we want to move towards kind of a world where we can work ahead of time with potential clients and SPs so that we can kind of understand their needs. Based on the discussions that I had in Q4, I still believe that a lot of people are trying to do the right thing. And it's also important to understand why Datacap abuse is happening. For example, I had a great discussion with a large SP trying to understand, like, why were they buying Datacap on the open market, right? And so I think the discussion there isn't so much about, oh, you did so that we're going to ban you. The discussion is about understanding the underlying causes and reasons so that we can understand. And that's why we have increased focus on client tooling. We have a dedicated person on that because that seemed to be one of the challenges in the blockers. People were like, oh, Datacap, like KYC is moving fast and things like that. And so we are addressing those things. It takes some time. It's been like only 2 months, I would say, since we've increased our focus on this aspect. And the last one is and the last one is improving tooling for notary due diligence. So right now, in December, we shipped the ECID checkerbot, and as a result of that, we had a lot of interesting discussions in January. Right now, we did launch the E-Fil Plus analytics dashboard as well around that time, but we haven't seen as much adoption. So right now, I'm focused on improving the adoption for this dashboard, which will include tutorials in different languages, as well as making improvements to this dashboard as well. And I want to understand, how can this be useful for notaries? So if you are a notary on the call or just a community member and you have ideas of how we can improve this dashboard, please reach out to me, and we can collaborate. And then we also have other tooling that is currently being built that can support notary due diligence. So those are kind of the high level priorities that are currently on my plate and the Trust and Transparency Working Group. But if you think that there are other things that we need to prioritize or that we might have missed, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to connect. Thank you.
Well said, RG. Well, with the 8 minutes that we have left on the call, this is open forum. Any discussions on the topics raised or anything new? The floor is anyone's.
Hey guys, I just want to note some things. So first, for the notary leaderboard, to log in, you need to use the GitHub account that is associated with your notary application. Some people have been trying different GitHub accounts, and currently that doesn't work. So please use the one that you use for your notary application. If that still doesn't work, please contact me on Slack. Other things that are important is that SA bot is currently down for maintenance again. We're trying to upgrade it and investigate certain problems regarding wallet balance checking. So please note that for the next few hours, the LDN applications bot won't be responding that much.
All right. Hello. Welcome to the second Notary Governance call of March 2023, March 28th. On the agenda, we have a full packed session. We're going to kick off with some updates around signing in with the Notary Leaderboard, make sure that everyone on the call has the link and is tracking how to sign up for participation. Galen's going to walk us through some updates around the pulse survey that was recently sent out to the notaries, as well as give some updates around the mission statement and the roadmap for what's taking place on the government's team. As far as updates, we're going to be walking through some of the recently closed proposals, as well as making sure that you're tracking 3 of the new proposals that recently came through GitHub, which are the Bootcamp, the Diligence Flow, and the increased limits. After that, we have 2 updates that are coming from the working groups, the Enterprise Fill Plus, as well as Trust and Transparency. And just like the morning, we expect lots of time at the end of this call for any discussions or questions you have. So at any time in this call, if there's something that you wanted to flag with the speaker or raise for the community, please shoot a hand up and we'll call and we'll make sure that the floor is yours as we go forward. So with that, if you're joining the call or watching on YouTube, you can always add these on your Google shared calendar. We host these every other week. The next call will be on April 11th, and we post these in the Filecoin Slack if you wanted to follow along with the slide deck as well. If you're curious to put an item on the agenda, as always, if you go to the Notary Governance repo, you'll see an issue that's created every 2 weeks. Just comment under that issue. Hey, Kevin, I'd like to have this proposal spoke to, or this comment in Slack, or anything that might be linked to it, and I'll put it on the agenda and make sure that there's a talking point for it. All right. Hey, notaries, we have a new way for you guys to sign in on these calls. We're kind of excited about it. So in this notary leaderboard that I'm sharing screen right now, and Galen's dancing about, you'll see there's this call attended. So big, huge props to Cataline and Phil for setting this leaderboard up. What's possible now is I'm going to drop a link here in the chat of our conversation that we have going. So I'm going to drop this here in chat. If you come over to the leaderboard page right now, you can enter this code and this will link your profile to this meeting. Now, quick caveat, you have to be signed into GitHub, and that GitHub account has to be the one that your application was filed under. So if you go ahead and just copy that link that we've shared, you can then paste that in and have that meeting invite. And just like Galen posted in chat, if you have any issues with copying that or pasting it, please let me know and we'll be sure to get you set up. Anybody who's not a notary who's on this call, like a community member, a storage provider, anybody, an applicant, I'm going to share the link to the Airtable form that we've been using. And what this will allow you to do is also get credit for coming to these meetings. Really helpful in future elections to show your participation or ask any questions. So you'll see two links in the chat right now. One is for the leaderboard for you notaries. Anybody who's not a notary, there is a link to the Airtable. Any questions, please let us know in chat and we'll go to help you out. Again, big props, Catalina and Phil, for getting that leaderboard set up. Really looking forward to that coming along. All right, on to governance. If you haven't seen our smiling faces, we're the governance team here to help you with any issues. I sit on support, primarily focused on notaries. KZ leads our efforts with large enterprise projects on the E-Fil Plus. KZ leads our trust and transparency, RG leads trust and transparency. Smiling Phil and Simon work on the notary tooling and client onboarding. And then Deep is responsible for large data flow, and the overall project governance is falling to Galen. So anything you need, feel free to route us and tag us. If you're not sure, you can always tag me and I'll help get you to the right place. I'm going to turn it over to Galen for the mission statement.
Hello, everyone. Yes. So the entire governance team, we've been sort of working at this for a while, workshopping it with some various stakeholders, and wanted to sort of go ahead and take time to pitch out this public mission statement. There will also be an upcoming blog post where we sort of unpack this some more and also point to a couple additional sort of things that are coming down the funnel, but wanted to talk about it here. For the past, whatever, year and a half, 2 years that, occasionally Deep and I would put this statement up on a screen that people would then kind of point to as our mission statement, even though it wasn't necessarily actually meant to be that around, data and social trust layers. And there have been some kind of misunderstandings and miscommunications around sort of the focus of the program. So with that in mind, I don't think that this mission statement by itself, as it is written, should really be that controversial. And I think one of the things about it is that it really does still capture what the Filecoin Plus program has always focused around, which is, onboarding data and adding utility to the decentralized storage network and leveraging sort of this community governed, social trust layer. So as we're going forward with this, we'll just call it out. The Fil Plus program supports use cases for data onboarding and utilization of Filecoin's decentralized storage network through community-governed trust mechanisms. Like I said, this shouldn't be controversial. There will be a blog post coming soon where we unpack it and break it down. Danny was in some of the conversations where he got to weigh in on some of the specific verbiage, and we would edit it for like 10 minutes and then end up with basically saying the same word soup but in a more complicated way, and then paring it back down and landing back at where we started. So I feel really good with this. I think that it is concise enough to get the point across, but still robust enough to capture what it is that we're really focusing on. So with that in mind, if you could kick forward a slide for me, please, K-Ray. We are then going to unpack that mission statement into sort of a roadmap of action. We have been working on kind of setting some 3-month, 4-month kind of target milestones for what the governance team is working towards. We've had a couple different iterations of this roadmap that we've been workshopping as well. And I think that we're very close to kicking this off publicly. We'll be announcing it in Slack. This will be connected to that blog post. People can go see. And we want to take these sort of 6 focus areas and drive a lot of the efforts that we are doing around these 6 focus areas and set some of the, strategic initiatives, but also then the very tactical projects that the various members of the governance team are working on, and align them into these 6 focus areas and be able to show what we are working on, what our expected timeline is and our milestones, and how we will get there. And then we want to help create some new metrics and places where the community can go see those and understand sort of the progress that we're making in a pretty public way. So again, I don't think these as they are should be that controversial. People may have different opinions about them or about whether or not how accurate one of these statements may be right now. But these are the focus areas where we want to be driving more change. And so this kind of goes back to like how we used to orient around a 6-week cadence where, Deep and I would say like, we have this cadence for speed or this focus area for speed. And here's this metric we're going to look at, and here's our target. And so we're sort of just pulling up a layer into these themes. So the program, Filecoin Plus program, enables Filecoin's master plan to onboard massive amounts of data to the network. If you're not familiar with the Filecoin master plan, go check out some talks by the ever gregarious and entertaining Juan Benet. He will help demystify what the Filecoin master plan is and explain that to you at length. Number 2, Datacap abuse in the system is minimized. This is something that all of us care about at different levels. We have different opinions on what defines it, where we are right now. We'll be releasing sort of our governance team's thought on it and the specific metrics we look at to define it, as well as the new metrics that we want to track towards and how we are going to continue to push to minimize Datacap abuse in the system. Number 3, notaries perform robust diligence commensurate with the Datacap granted. I think that this is true. I think that the amount of diligence that is happening is and should remain mapped to the amount of Datacap that is being granted in the scale of the entire network, in the scale of the footprint of Filecoin Plus, but also of the overall network itself. Number 4, disputes and allegations of abuse are investigated with an emphasis on restorative justice. And in this theme, like, we really want to emphasize that restorative justice. There are a lot of people in this ecosystem. It is a complicated ecosystem. Rules change, information changes, there's qualitative things that can be misunderstood, there's language barriers, people are moving fast and prioritizing things, and also a number of these people are functioning as notaries and effectively as volunteers to like do this work. People make mistakes, people drop something, people sign the wrong thing, people, a client misunderstands or misrepresents. Like, these things happen. Sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes it's abuse, either way. But we want to investigate with an eye to correcting the behavior, not an eye to punishing everybody as harshly as possible. And so in that way, our goal is always to change the behavior, to learn from it what we can, to make the system better, and to understand how to prevent, those mistakes and those bad behaviors in the future. So that's our focus area there. 5, legitimate client use cases have scoped pathways for attaining Datacap. We've been working really hard on this with the projects that we do around auto verifiers, projects that we are doing that maybe have not gotten a ton of traction yet around FVM, and how we are working to scope support for smart contract projects, how we work to add support for LDNs at different scales, how we work to investigate ways to support enterprise, be it public or private. So we are attempting to build clearly scoped and right-sized pathways so that all of these use cases that come to us can quickly understand where they need to fit in, the amount of information they need to provide, and how they can follow their project to get the data cap that they need, and that data cap and that diligence is right-sized for that project. And then lastly, the governance model encourages rapid iteration and process improvement for diverse stakeholders. There's 28 participants on this call right now, and I guarantee that not all 28 of us have the same prioritization, have the same incentives, have the same boss, have the same thing that we want to see in this network in 6 months or in 6 years. But we're all here trying to make it the best that we can and meet those compromises and design in a collaborative way. Sometimes we're not going to agree. How do we as the governance team keep pushing for rapid testing that is still safe enough to try, knowing we can make these changes and revert back if necessary? And how do we demonstrate whether or not these processes are working? So these are like I said, these are the 6 focus areas. There will be more public information about specifically how we are tracking them with metrics quantitatively, and the work that we are doing on like a project scale to map towards them. So I'm really excited for this. I really appreciate all the work the governance team has put into it. I appreciate all the different stakeholders that have given us feedback in this process as we've been going. And I think that the next 3 months are going to be a lot of velocity change. So stay tuned. And then I think you have the joy of hearing from me for one more slide. Is that right? Boom. Yes. To that end, there have been, if you are, if you have a pulse and you're in the Filecoin community and you've been here for more than 2 weeks, you probably have been tracking a couple spicy conversations in FIPS around SDM and some other discussions around CDM, some conversations around quality multipliers, around should the Filecoin Plus program as a multiplier continue to exist? Should other subsidy models be added? There's a lot of different opinions out there. There's a lot of people that are backing up their opinion with an amount of data. And like I just said, this is a complicated and very diverse set of stakeholders. So one of the things that the governance team we kicked it off last week, wasn't perfect, but we want to keep iterating on this and trying it. We want to do pulse surveys. This is not a poll. This is not a poll. You're not voting. This is the pulse check where we are asking our notary community to give us feedback, sentiment, sort of where are you on these different topics, and try and make some of the topics specific enough where we can get some like good actionable insights and data. So the structure of this pulse check, we did it on a scale of sort of 0 to 5. I think that is probably how we will continue to do them because I think that it is a meaningful way to capture sort of various people's stance on it. 5 being, I fully support this. I think that it's an incredible idea. If this passes, like this is the best thing that we could do right now. 4 being, I moderately support it. Looking forward to trying it. 3 being, I'm pretty neutral. I see the pros, I see the cons. I don't have a better opinion. I think we should just do it and move on. 2 being, I'm cautiously unsupportive. 1 being, I'm pretty moderately unsupportive. I don't think this is a good idea. If it passes, I'm still, here. I think that we are a community. Sometimes I'm not going to win every argument, but I have an idea, an alternative. I have a reason for why I think this is a 1, and I have a better proposed solution. Again, for like whatever the thing is that we're asking about. And then a 0 or a fist is I am extremely unsupportive of this. I do not think that this is a good idea. And I have a justification and I have an alternative reason. So the thing that we want to get out of this is, you may not like an idea, but we would like to know why. We would like to understand what you think is the better alternative solution and why this idea or this thing that we are asking about would be bad. So I sent the survey out. If you did not get it, if you are a notary and you did not get the survey, sorry, it may have been a mistake in an email. We're working to make sure that we have everyone's email address. If you didn't get it and you think you should, we'll work through Slack with K-Ray. He has Slack channels that he's set up with everybody where he swapped, token codes to like connect and verify this email address that we have with this set of Slack handles to know that we're talking to the right person. And the intent with this was to send 1 per organization. So if you are a member of an organization where you have kind of multiple staff and peers who have signed up to be notaries, we want 1 reply for your organization on these. Again, not a poll, not a vote, but we want you guys to synthesize your opinions into 1 and present 1 unified opinion from your notary organization about these, wearing your notary hat. And like I said, we hope to continue doing these so that we can keep like capturing where, as we launch these strategic initiatives, we'll be asking you, is this the most important strategic initiative that we need to be tracking towards? Are we missing something? And then, give us feedback to help keep us aligned. I think that it's going to help push us in the right direction. So with that, I am going to kick it back over to K-Ray.
Thanks for that, Galen. I'm going to actually take it and then pass it over to Phil, who's on the call. We had some bugs that came up. We've identified the slide. Phil, if you're on the line, floor is yours.
Hey guys, so very quick, there are a few bugs, very common bugs that were issued, pinged to me on the LDN applications. The first most common bug is this bug that says we could not find ID field in the information provided, and this has been stopping multiple LDN applications from getting their Datacap, even though there was a proposal and an approval. So this should be fixed for now. We're tracking if it happens again, and if it happens again, you should let me know. Another bug that we get is double proposal. So if you see an LDN application and there are two proposals for the same request, something's wrong going on there. We added an extra check to see if this happens, and it should prevent it from happening. We also track when it happens. So if it does happen again, there's really something wrong, and you should let me know. There's one double request bug that is happening right now. We're investigating it, and SABot is still under maintenance. It should be up again tomorrow. So there will be no new Datacap request coming up in the next few hours. I'll let you know when it comes up again. But sorry for the inconvenience, and we're trying our best to get it solved. Thank you. Hand it back to Carrie.
Hey, thanks, Phil. If anybody has any questions or encountering these, feel free to stick a hand up now, and we'll also have time at the end of the call for any other additional questions you have. Thanks for that, Phil. Great. We have 4 slides about proposals. I'll take the first. It's just the recently closed. Just in the guise of transparency, we closed out these proposals since the last governance call. First proposal was the bug. Phil kind of spoke to this briefly. It was the allocation report, had the wrong static information on it. We were able to address that and close that bug out. Thanks for flagging. The second was the trust and transparency review of Metawave. Lots of good conversation took place in January and February. The conversation really hadn't moved forward since that time, so we closed it out. But as always, if you're in the community and you see something and want us to discuss this, feel free to comment on that issue while it's closed. And the third one we closed out was the initial proposal for the Trust and Transparency Code of Conduct. We've been working on this with RG pretty closely. There's a new proposal that's up. So we closed out this old one. So just for transparency, these 3 issues have closed, but if there's anything else, feel free to comment those as we go forward. Great. With our next slide, we have a guest speaker that's come to talk a little bit about theirs. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan to speak about the Converter Bootcamp. Alan, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Yeah. Hello. I'm Alan, mainly responsible for Greaterheat data growth. And then I will briefly introduce this bootcamp project, which is jointly released by Greaterheat and PL. Yeah. The TSPA project introduction project visual is to help Azure SPs complete their File Plus business transformation and expand the elective data storage. Yeah, the main goal is to help 30 Filecoin CC SPs successfully transform into DC SPs with 6 months, creating a automated educator QAP or 1 EID for Filecoin network. So then maybe someone ask why we apply for a large DC reason. I think there are 2 reasons. The one is conventional LDN application for a maximum amount of 5 PIB is more difficult to meet bootcamp's requirements for 100 PIB DC amount. Yeah, maybe LDN needs at least 20 different applications, but quality diets set might only need 2 to 3 to meet DSP's goals. The second, the developer high quality diet and create a classic example of data storage. Yes. The usage, we think the applet DC will save 30 Azure SPs in Bootcamp, creating 100 PIB of Filecoin Plus storage growth. Then the type of application, we think there are two. One is large enterprise, just FILE, and the second is quality public datasets, yeah, LDN. Then we promise that the project team will first complete the KYB process in strict compliance with Filecoin Plus network rules. The second, issue accepts KYB from volunteers and notaries throughout the Filecoin community. The third, as the DSPA organizer, Greaterheat is happy to make some SP node ideas available for community review. Then the Filecoin Plus guide to transparency. We first may submit proposals for the entire project in the Notary Governance report. The second, submit 2 to 3 20 to 30 PIB applications. Each applies the same client date. The third, each Datacap application will be assigned to SP's participants according to the project team arrangement. Then the data storage plan, we think, apply for DC culture according to the actual situation of every client date, maybe 5 to 10 4 copies per client. Bootcamp 100 PIBDC target to complete maybe 2 to 3, 30 to 50 PIB one application. Yes. Then at last, we welcome more SPs and volunteers, notaries are welcome to join the bootcamp. Yeah. If someone has some questions, you can leave a message on the GitHub. Then we will get in touch with you. Thank you. That's all. Thank you, everyone listening my poor English. Thank you. Okay.
Alan, that was great. A lot of information. We'll pause. If anybody on the call has any questions for Alan, floor is yours. I appreciate you speaking to that, Alan. Everyone, the issue is 845. It's linked in the slide deck. So if you have any questions or want to check it out, really exciting stuff. Looking forward to that kicking off sometime mid this year, Alan. Thank you again for speaking to that. Next, we have the due diligence.
Hey guys, so proposal 850 for the LDN applications. Essentially, this proposal gives the addition of these notary templates or notary save applies that notaries can paste into the comments to signify to other notaries that they approve or disapprove of a certain application. So essentially, these save replies allow you to put a justification to why you approve or disapprove of the application, or you can also say that you're asking for more evidence, and where it will prompt the client to give you more data samples or more evidence for the application. On the other hand, it also creates a label, triggers a label. So when the notary pastes these save replies, the bot will see it and change the label of the application. This is just for better signaling to other notaries that this application has been approved or disapproved before. And also it gives us some more data from these applications. It creates LDN, makes the LDN application process way more transparent. And yeah, this data can be used for decision making in the future to create better tooling. If you have any thoughts or comments, please comment on the application. sounds good. Gonna hand it back to Carrie then.
Man, I think that's so cool. I'm excited about that. I'm not even signing those, Phil. I'm looking forward to those questions as we go. Simon, I'll turn it over to you for the increase.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Hi, everyone. So we'll be reintroducing this proposal idea that was introduced in the past by Deep and Galen. So with the increase of just projects that are requesting for more than 5 PIBs, the proposal will introduce the idea that the data cap request limit on LDNs per application to increase to 15 PIBs. This idea of increasing the data cap request limit would just help decrease redundant client applications that are coming in and provide just a more accurate insight for us on the total data set size that clients are requesting. A concern that some people might be raising is that with the high data cap request, there might be clients might receive throughout the process. So just with that new limit introduced, we would also change the allocation math to avoid that. If you look at the current allocation process that we're using today in the proposal, and below is the max request scenario. So if you look at the proposal, sorry, Carrie, if you could just hover over like the middle of it, a little bit more down. Yep, right there. It shows that a client request if a client requests 5 PIBs of total data cap, 1 PIB per week onboard rate, you'll see that the first allocation is about 0.25 PIBs, second allocation, half a PIB, third 1, fourth 2, and so on. So with the new allocation process, it will be the lesser of 50% of weekly allocation rate or 0.25 PIBs and so on. If you see the tranche sizes for the allocation, it will still be similar to how the program currently is, and the speed that clients are receiving data cap shouldn't change. So the only thing that's really changing is the LDN limit request so that we can just help clients with creating less redundant applications, but the speed of allocation will just stay the same. Last thing to mention, as part of this change within the LDN application process, the scope will be adjusted to if clients would like to apply for more than 15 PIBs, they should go through the E-Fil Plus pathway. And essentially this is because the E-Fil Plus pathway just serves as a testing ground for enterprise data and new use cases for client onboarding. So if you're interested in this or have any questions, you can reach out to Kevin Z. Yeah, so thank you. And again, always appreciate feedback and your inputs. So please, if you have any time, go ahead and comment in the proposal.
Thanks, Simon. There was a lot of questions on this in the morning's call. Simon, did you want to highlight really quickly some of those questions? I know it was like, why not increase the time? How does the E-Fil Plus program differ from like private data to public data?
Yeah, so I think I remember one question was like, why 15 over like 20 or 25? I think personally for us, we're actually tripling the limit itself. So that's already a big increase. I think that was just something we want to go ahead and start with. And I think anything realistically, clients are applying for more. We think that it should go through E-Fil Plus just because of the KYB check would also be helpful. And this also allows just like incoming clients who are just starting out with the Fil Plus program won't be able to apply for this ridiculously high number as well. I'm sorry, Carrie, what was the second question again?
I remember one, and maybe KZ can address this. It was the question of, I thought the intent of the E-Fil Plus project was to have private enterprise data, not just large scale enterprise data.
So I think, I think that was, how should I say it? Like, we wanted to kind of maybe rephrase that E-Fil Plus. Correct me if I'm wrong, KZ, but E-Fil Plus shouldn't just be private data itself, but enterprise level data. So any kind of large scale data should be going through E-Fil Plus.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. If there are just, any questions, or if you don't want to share it now, you can just post them in the proposal, or you can reach out to me in Slack as well.
That's great, Simon. I think a lot of people mirror that this will cut down on the amount of applications and make it a little bit easier to get those tranches pushed through at a more rapid rate. Thank you for spearheading this. If anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot a hand up, comment on issue 851, and as always, we'll have time at the end of the call.
I think K-Ray, Linda raised.
Please, Linda, the floor is yours. Thanks for catching that.
Hi, Kevin. Just a quick question for Galen. He mentioned that there's a post-check form, right? I just wonder what's the deadline for that form to fill in?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
We're trying to capture that information specifically about the BIP 56 and the Filecoin Plus program, and pass it in a consolidated way to some of the core devs.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Galen.
Linda, appreciate you asking that. Thank you. All right. Working group updates. I'm going to turn the floor over to KZ, who has an update for us on the E-Fil Plus pilot.
Great. Thanks, K-Ray. Hi, everyone. So for those of you that have been following along since last year, Enterprise Fil Plus has been primarily focused on supporting private data as an onboard, pathway. But we also are focused on some other tests that we're engaging in: KYC, KYB checks that are required. And the one on the screen here is related to the notary assignments. So for the E-Fil pilot, all applications are notaries are randomly assigned. I have a group of 35 notaries that have volunteered to be part of the working group. And as applications and allocation requests come in, they're randomly assigned to review within an SLA of 72 hours, so essentially 3 days. So we've been testing that for the past few months, and I wanted to share some of the results thus far. I won't go into all the details. There's a link on the slide. You can check that out on GitHub a little bit more. But just at a high level, when we looked at the 14 active applications, I had 106 notary assignments. So and this is manual right now. So I'm manually assigning randomly notaries to the different allocation requests. 63 of those engaged in the SLA time slot that we were looking at. So they commented within the 72-hour time frame, and 43 did not respond at all. And just one step more, if you look at those that actually engaged, 46 of them, so 73%, signed the allocation request. So what do all these numbers mean? To me, at the bottom, the key takeaways right now that I'm having: overall, only about 30% of those signed per the guidelines. And that's not saying that they don't want to sign. It's just saying that it takes a lot of time and energy to get the notary's attention and hold them accountable towards looking at these applications. And not only the notaries, but also the clients. Clients are going through a lot of their own checks, confirm that they're real with real data, and they're waiting on notaries. So I think this is an area we can definitely iterate on. I want to propose some things here later on. But engagement overall is high. Notaries are engaged. All the notaries in the working group are great. When they have time, they're actively engaged, which I want to thank them for that. But it's just not always the time that we need that. So we need to figure out a better way to incentivize and make sure this is working well. And finally, overall, so only 5% of notaries that were assigned declined to sign an allocation. meaning that, you know, for whatever reason, they did not support the application, which to me, this speaks strongly to the fact that they're being presented with applications and clients that have gone through a lot of checks, and they're being presented as, you know, trustworthy, valid data sets. And I think most of the notaries are able to deal with that, and it's setting us up nicely, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, Ray, if you could go to the next slide. Just really quickly, so I don't have a proposal yet, but I have an open discussion where I'm thinking about ways to iterate. You know, one of the ideas that comes to my mind right away is, like I mentioned, we're putting a lot of energy and effort into assigning different notaries each allocation. But I'm learning that if we can have notaries that work with applicants from the beginning through their entire journey, there's really two phases. There's this before the first allocation phase, where a client is going through a series of KYC, KYB, SP, plan checks. And based on that trust up front, you know, the notaries make a decision. But I also think there's opportunity to meet clients virtually, for a group of notaries to be involved from the beginning. And then as the client goes through a set of allocations, notaries are there to understand what's happening, because things change. SPs that are involved change. Deal making has issues, right? If you're a new lead SP involved in a project, I've seen a lot of, you know, problems that come up and need to be explained as part of these CID tracker checks. So I think having a group of notaries that are actively engaged throughout makes a lot of sense. So this is something I want to push a little bit more. I'm open to suggestions and comments here. There's a discussion link, and I'd like to turn this into a proposal in the near future. That's all I have for now, K-Ray. Thank you.
Oh, well done, fellow Kevin. Open it up if anybody has any thoughts, questions, or comments.
Hey, I just have a quick one, which is how were you notifying notaries in the random test? Because I definitely know that I struggle with notifications through GitHub just because there's a lot of them.
Good question, Danny. Thank you. Actually, it's primarily through GitHub, and I think that is part of the problem. We're not seeing notaries realize that they've, you know, been tagged in an application. I was testing Slack, manually tagging in Slack, but then I was having conversations in both channels, and it was becoming too much to manage as the applications are growing. So this is something that it's on Phil's radar as well, to potentially automate different ways to communicate out to notaries, whether it's via direct email, Slack, automation, as well as GitHub. But I agree, this just when I tag them in GitHub is not enough. Yeah.
I wonder if there's something. So my interface on a lot of this stuff is the Fil Plus single page application. I wonder if I know it's already passing all of the GitHub comments to kind of construct its look on it. I wonder if there's something there where it can like flag ones where there's been an active kind of at.
Are you talking about the registry? The registry, like where you sign to action to like actually. Yeah. We're actively looking at some additional ways to restructure those columns to be able to hide, filter, or like see ones that may get assigned to you. So that when you as a notary sign in, instead of, you would still be able to see the full list of everything, but you could also, this was also an idea before the recent refactor where load times were really bad. But the hypothesis is if you sign in and there's only 10, but you know that those 10 are for you, that you would be able to like more quickly bump through and parse, or use the save reply templates from before that we mentioned to be able to say, like, this was assigned to me, but I am not performing diligence on it because it's outside of my jurisdiction, or there's a conflict of interest, or yada, 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 but that could still like pull them off of your view, off of your SLA. And that may, again, also like tie it back to the leaderboard stat to say, if you committed to an SLA of, you know, actioning things within 3 days that were assigned to you, if you more quickly understand what is assigned to you, if actioning it is counted by you, even if you choose not to sign, justifying why you didn't sign. Like all these things can help feed into one another.
Yeah.
Master plan.
That all makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So you don't like
Actually,
having a hardware solution like a beeper? You don't want us to ship every notary a physical.
I think one of those leg bracelets that prisoners in some countries have, where I just have one of those attached to me at all times, and whenever I need to sign something, it either buzzes or just clamps harder.
Just starts to constrict a little. Yeah. Great.
I just wonder the random assignment test to all the notaries or just to those who apply for the participation of the E-Fil program?
That was on the Enterprise Fill program. We're working on some auto assigning, but not random assigning initiatives for all notaries, for all LDNs. But stay tuned. For that, we will be looking at things like, if you are a notary in a particular region, if an LDN comes in and says that it is in that region, we may do something like pick all of the notaries in that region and auto assign a pool. So rather than it being random selection, it may be intentional selection. But the information that KZ is sharing out was from a test that he did with the notaries that opted into the enterprise program.
Okay, thank you, Galen.
Yeah.
All right. We have a question in chat. We'll pin that until I give the updates from Trust and Transparency, and then Chloe will come back to that, do a group thread on that for you. Sweet. So speaking on behalf of RG, just quick chat. RG, if you're on the call, feel free to unmute. I didn't see you. They are essentially forming issue 846, and this has to do with formal dispute resolution. So as you know, right now, the dispute resolution kind of forms in the way of a Slack channel or a GitHub conversation. It can be very opaque. It might not have very clear-cut information on like what needs to happen. So what they're looking to do is essentially have like a tracked wallet. And what this will do is they'll have like a specific amount that's sent to that wallet by the governance team. Then we can always monitor to see like what the specified fill is in that wallet, and then penalize based off the amount of participation and lack participation, fraud, whatever it may be that comes up in that process. So this is 846. This is kind of migrated from the staking proposals that we've had in the past. This is definitely worth checking out if you're a notary, not just if you're on the working groups, because what this is going to apply to is how are we taking this group participation in on this. So please check out 846 dealing with that. The second is, how does that Trust and Transparency working group look at these applications and then respond to their status? So again, as the program grows and as we're trying to make this a more sustained process with much more structured and clear-cut guidelines on how this data is being onboarded, audited, and really contributing to that core mission that Galen outlined, what RG is working on is essentially having increased visibility into that dispute process. So this is going to be a big lift coming up on their radar over the next sprint. We should see a lot more updates on the Trust and Transparency call that takes place at the same time next week. So if you're interested in learning more about that, but essentially what this will be is that they'll have a dedicated way to handle that dispute resolution versus these proposals and going forward on it. And then lastly, what they're looking to do is having this collaboration between the Trust and Transparency and the project that KZ is leading, and then accelerator support as they go through there on this. So right now, the way the Trust and Transparency works, it's very reactive. It's flagged by the community. It's flagged by you as notaries. It's flagged by issues that might come up. And what they're looking to do is like try to understand the why behind this. So RG's had a couple calls with storage providers that actually purchased Datacap. And I think his intent was to not be more of like an investigator or a police officer, but more of like, why? What's missing in the program that someone would need to purchase that Datacap in order to make their business model? So I think that's like a big takeaway for how RG is approaching this problem. It's not meant to be a gotcha. It's meant to be, what are we doing wrong that we can improve and streamline this so that we're all growing this project together and a long-term solution is put, not just catching one-offs, but figuring out why we have those one-offs. So RG will probably have a lot more updates in the coming weeks from these conversations and trying to figure out how we can collaborate versus just go after, penalize. And that's really like a core tenet of what his project is looking at right now. And then Simon, if you're on the call, feel free to interrupt me and step in for this Starboard. But essentially what they're looking at doing for tooling on the Starboard is having a much more comprehensive and easy to use dashboard. So we have the link in the slide deck. If you haven't taken a look, it's absolutely beautiful. So props to you guys for making this work. And essentially what this does is you can look at these improvements and objectively define where this data cap is going, who's pulling it in, what are they doing with it, how did that data cap get applied? Did it come through like the Glyph auto verifier? Did this come through an LDN? So what we're really looking to do with this tooling is, again, step out from like prosecuting one-off cases and look at streamlining this solution to be a lot more helpful for you in the community, and then all of us with like quality data that comes on board with it. So speaking on behalf of RG, he's definitely the point of contact for all these updates, and as well as the Trust and Transparency Working Group if you have questions. And with that, I'm going to thank you and then open the floor up for anything that you'd like to bring up, talk about, or flag.